today we're lucky to welcome CR. Hey CR, how are you?
Hi, how are you?
Sorry, that intro took me a while. There's a lot to mention. You've done a lot since I saw you last.
It's been busy.
Really busy. So for our listeners in Australia, I think we should start by clarifying the difference between AQHA show roping and rodeo.
So in the rodeo, most of you know, it's on time and they time the run, where in AQHA, they judge the horse. So you still make the same calf roping run, but there's a judge and they score the horse starting with 70, and then they give a plus or minus on 4 different maneuvers: the box, and then how they run to the calf, the stop, and then working rope. And they judge the maneuver. They judge the horse on how well they do each maneuver, and they'll score you, and then the highest score wins the class.
So let's go back to the beginning. Like, where did you grow up, and how did Roni's mother, which your family owned, Berries and Enola Gay, fit into that?
So I grew up in Indiana and my dad had bought Roni's mom as a reining horse, and they'd showed her in the futurity in the non-pro at Congress, reining futurity. And so he bought her and he showed her and won the senior reining at the Congress. And then we started roping on her. And I won my first youth world championship on her when I was 13 years old in the heading. And then she got hurt a year later and couldn't be rode anymore. So we made her a broodmare. And my Roni was her first colt.
Her first foal?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
And so that was when I still lived in Indiana. She had her first colt, and I started Roni when I was probably 15 or 16, when she was 2, and I rode her for the first year. And then I went off to college, and she stayed with my dad for a year, and he showed her in the Congress reining futurity. And then I came and got her when I was in college and started roping on her.
Yeah, right. So you were 15 when she was. No, how old were you when she was born? Then 15. No,
she's 30. So she's 30 this year, and I'll be 45. So I guess I was 15 when she was born. So I guess I was 17 when she was 17 when she was 2, and that's when I started riding her when she was 2. I rode her that year, and that probably my last year. That's probably, yes, I started her for the first her 2-year-old year. I rode her, and then I moved off to college, and my dad kept her for a year.
Yeah, cool. So then you got her back off your dad, and she was ready to rope. And then you trained her with the roping side of it too?
Roping side, yes.
Yeah.
And I don't think he didn't win anything in the reining on her, but we knew she'd be a good rope horse. So her dad is a horse that my uncle owned, is a smooth talking man. And he was a racehorse from Pennsylvania. And it actually went through my dad's barn as an outside horse. And then we got him and sold him to my uncle, who raised a lot of calf horses out of them. And he was a pretty good racehorse. I think he even had maybe a track record. He was by Jet Smooth. And so when Roni, her first time breeding her, we bred her to him because he was close and we liked him. We liked some of the other colts by him, so that was who we bred.
Both of your parents are very, very accomplished horse people as well. Tell us a bit about them.
So my dad taught at the University of Findlay for many years, and he also trained horses. He roped, but he mostly trained like reining horses and pleasure horses and all around horses. My mom did the English and barrels, and she did they had a lot of youth kids. They showed a lot in the quarter shows, and he enjoyed to rope. My dad enjoyed roping, but that wasn't really his business. He just enjoyed doing it.
So what made you get started in that?
I don't know. From the time I was 4 or 5 years old, all I ever wanted to do is rope. So
you're just that little kid was walking around with the rope.
Right. Yeah. So, and I grew up in the horse show world. And so I started showing horses when I was 10 or 11 years old. So I've done that always, but I always wanted to rodeo and make the NFR. So that was when I got out of college, I decided I wanted rodeo and try to make the NFR.
Yeah, so the special thing I think about your story with Roni is like most successful cowboys like yourself, horse trainers, you know, they sort of go, you know, when I was 17, I had this horse, and then when I was this age, I had this horse, and they have all their transitional horses. But the special thing about, you know, you and Roni is you kind of grew together. I mean, you had college rodeo success, then you won AQHA world titles, and then, you know, you go on to make the NFR. Like, you know, how special is it to like have your whole career be literally like one horse?
It was awesome.
Yeah.
Because I did ride her in college. I rode her my last year in college at the college rodeos, and she was actually the horse of the year in our region. And I made the college finals on her, and we were showing her at the same time. I think she won her first world championship in the senior calf roping that year when I was in college. And then I started rodeoing after that. So then I was 4 years in the PRCA, and I won the Prairie Circuit in that time. And then I made the NFR. And then I decided when I made the NFR, I was going to quit and train horses after that. So after I went the NFR, and Roni was the main reason I made the NFR. Rode her there. I rode her 9 of the 10 rounds. I rode another horse 1 round. Didn't do very good the round I got off of her. And then I decided I was going to train horses after that.
Like, I remember watching her like even 20 years ago, and like it just felt like she never did anything bad. Like, just felt like you never, like, I don't know, she just always like hunted that cow out of that box and just did the biggest stop ever and went back. Like, she never, like, did she just love it?
Yeah, she does. And she has a lot of heart and a lot of try. And she was pretty tough. Like, I don't think we ever injected her or anything when I was rodeoing on her. She just had a lot of try and liked it. She just loved doing her job, and she was always really good. She did it correct, and she always tried really hard. Always worked rope good. Always stopped every time.
Yes, you
Scored
never
great.
felt like you really like had, you know, went through hiccups with her where it was like, you know, this isn't working, that isn't working. It just always worked, right?
Right. Yes. And I mean, when I was training her, she had her good and bad days, but she always wanted to be a good horse, though. She always
What was
tried.
she like as a 2-year-old?
She was actually really not, I knew she was good when she was 2. She was actually pretty easy to break. She never bucked when she was 2. The only time she ever bucked, the first time I ever tracked a cow on her and tried to rope on her when she was 4, she bucked me off when I was tracking the cow because she liked it so much.
Oh, she just
But
got a little cow fresh.
yes, but she never did one as a 2-year-old. She was really easy. And the first time I loped her around the arena for the first time. And when I said, whoa, she stopped and drug her butt. So she always wanted to stop.
So she went on to win a PRCA world title with, will help Tough Cooper win his.
Mm-hmm.
How did that come about?
So I even retired her for a year or so. Like after I made the NFR, I rode her a couple more years. I made the Texas Circuit Finals on her, mainly just going to Mesquite Rodeo. They have a series every week here in Mesquite, Texas. And I won it like 8 weeks in a row on riding her, and I made the Texas Circuit Finals. And then I retired her for a year, and I sent her back to my mom's house and let her turn her out and give her a year off. And she was probably 14 or 15. And I brought her back, and I legged her up, and there was a horse show coming up, and I took her to one horse show. Is a Texas Classic, is in Fort Worth. I took her one horse show, and I won it under every judge. I think there's 6 judges there, and I got her qualified for the world show that year. So I figured I'd bring her back, show her one more time. And I think I won it again that year. And Tough, I think Roy called me. He wanted to borrow Smurf, who's another great calf horse that I had. See if he could ride, Tough could ride him at the San Angelo match opening when he's matching Cody Old for the first time. And so I took Smurf over there to let Tough ride him, see if he'd like him. And I took Roni with me, and I let Tough run well, he rode Smurf, and Smurf was great. And I let him run one or two off Roni, and he got along great with her too.
I bet he did.
Yeah. So, and he, so I let him run two, and he rode Smurf at San Angelo, and he won the match roping, and he placed in the roping too, and did really good. And I don't remember how it came about. He, I'm not even sure. Yeah, somehow he asked. We took her to Northside, and I let him run one calf, and he won. He tied it like 7-1, and he won the rodeo, and decided he wanted to take her to Vegas with him. And that year he was, I think she was 18 years old that year, and he was coming in number 2. I think Trevor Brazil had a big lead that year, and Tough had a really good finals. He Tough won more money than any other calf roper that year on Roni, but didn't win the world. Tough Trevor won it, and then Roni had a sore suspensory, and we had to give her the next year off. And then he came back the next year and rode Roni just at the NFR, and I think he came in second or third in the world, but there was somebody else that came in with the lead.
Yeah.
And Tough won like 120,000 on Roni, and was one of the most money won in the world that year.
Wow. Tough must be special to you and your family, though, for you to even consider lending him your most prized possession other than your wife, Rosie.
Right. No, Tough, he was a really good kid, and he tried. You could tell he had a good heart, and he was trying to win. He had a goal, and you could tell he did everything right to win it.
Yeah. Do you know how much money Roni's won? Like,
I think definitely over $500,000, definitely over 500. Tough won 250,000 on her in 3 rodeos.
No way. That's crazy.
Yeah. And that was back before the NFR paid as good as it does now. That was back when it.
Were you guys at the NFR when he won?
Yeah, I took her and took care of her the whole time.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, how special was that?
It was fun. It was enjoyable. It was fun to watch her do good.
Yeah, I bet. So then how old was she when you bred Twisters and Ola Ray, Tigger, I think you call him?
So he's 13 this year, so that'd have been 14 years ago. So I guess she was 16.
So you flushed her?
We flushed her. She's never carried one. She's had 4 babies, and Twisters and Ola Ray. So he's by dual ray, and the reason I bred her to dual ray was because I was riding another one by the dual ray, and he happened to be another one we won the super horse on. I was riding him for Casey Hinton.
So you won the super horse twice.
And they were both on dual rays.
Yeah.
So, and I really liked him, and I think it was before I won that one, but I liked that horse a lot, so I bred Roni to dual ray and got Tigger, which is what we call him. It's Twister Noya Ray.
And which events did he compete in to win the super horse?
We showed him in the calf roping, heading, and heeling. He didn't do very good in the heading. He was still kind of green, but we won the calf roping on him, and we won reserve in the heeling, and then I showed him in the ranch riding. And that was back then. I think you only had to do 2 different categories. Like, so you can't just show them in roping. You have to show them in a different like type of event. You have to show them like 3 different categories. So he did the range riding, but back then you only had to do 1 other category. Now you have to do 3 different categories.
Yeah. Okay. So that, because it probably would stack heavily towards a rope horse, it could probably arguably do heading, heeling, rope and tie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The English horses win it a lot too, because they have a lot of
because they have all their classes as well. So I was listening to a podcast you did recent, or I don't know how old it was, but you were talking about cow horses and working lines and how you really prefer them as, your rope horses these days. Why is that?
I like the way they're bred because they're bred cowy, and the ones that are good cow horses make good rope horses too, because they're bred cowy and they're smart and they're athletic and quick enough if they're athletic enough to be quick going down the fence and work a cow, they're quick enough to rope too. And they're bred good. And I also like how the cow horses are trained they do a good job getting them broke, but they don't over bridle them. And they're really broke. They stop, they turn around, they neck rein, they do everything we need to do before we rope on them.
How do you think that cow horse brain specifically transfers into a good rope horse, like the horse's thought process specifically with that?
Well, definitely they like the cows, and they're quick thinkers, and they're looking to work the cow. I think is what makes them. They're tougher. I think they're a little tougher. So Roni was actually a reining horse. Her mom was a reining horse, and she was kind of bred to be a reiner on the bottom. And back that was in the 90s and 80s, and the reiners were a little different then. And I used to really like the reiners because they were broke, but back then they didn't really have the head too far down. They were broke, but they weren't. Their head wasn't way down below their withers, which they are like now. The styles change. Yeah, now they got their head way down, and it's hard to make a rope horse out of when their head's too far down. So you got to pick their head back up.
And why is that?
It's just they have trouble running to them with their head below their shoulders, and they're kind of a lot of them go their front. Yeah, a lot of them are kind of more weight on their front end when their head's that low. So then, like the cow horse people are good about they keep the pole of their head up. I mean, they'll bring their nose back. They want them soft in their mouth, but they'll keep the top of their head up just a little bit so they keep their shoulders up too.
Awesome. Well, I just had one more personal question. Mm-hmm. How does it feel to like back into the box at Vegas specifically? Like, how does that feel? And how confident did you feel like on a horse that you've like literally done? Like, was it like such a moment where you're like, oh my God, like I raised this horse when I was a kid. I broke her in. I did college on her. I did AQHA, and now we're backing into the box at Vegas. I mean, how does that actually feel?
I didn't really think of that, but I trusted Roni. I felt most comfortable on Roni because I knew what she would do, and she was so consistent at how she did it. I trusted her, and that helped me be relaxed. The first day I was kind of nervous because it was kind of a lifelong dream, and everybody's watching because everybody watches that rodeo. They don't see it the other 112 a year, but everybody's on TV. You're on TV, and everybody's there. And then by the second night, and then from then on, I just realized it's just another rodeo, and I just need to do my job. But because it paid a lot of money, so you better do your best to make some money.
Exactly. Only one person wins, but you can all definitely get a good payday there.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much for being with us. I've got the final question for you, which is, why do you think mare power matters?
Definitely. I think the mom makes more difference than the studs. And Roni had so much heart. And I think the really good mares, I love the really good mares. They have a lot of try, I think.
Definitely. Well, thank you so much for being with us. Yeah, it was so great to have you. And I'm sure we'd love, I've said this to you before, I'm sure we'd love to have you out here to do a clinic.
Thank you.
Would be absolutely brilliant once everything settles down with the world. But thanks so much for catching up with us.
Okay, thank you for having me.
No problem.